Okay, it's Bob Point here. It's a bit late at night to be starting this sort of thing, but I thought I'd get this report up before I forgot um, what had occurred. Um, oh, excuse me. I am completely incompetent in the field of electronics, social media, and IT, so please forgive me. This may or may not be going out. I can't actually see any chat window whilst I'm doing this. So anybody who may be out there in the void of the internet world, I'm sorry, I won't be able to communicate with you. Um, I know certainly Andy Ransom has indicated he's seen that this has popped up. So hi, Andy. Um, Whereas you do a deep delve or a deep plunge into your reports, this is more of a skim, shallow tread through some murky waters that is Kings of War still for me at the moment. So this was a 2,000 points 4-game event held at the excellent Black Dragon in Hinckley, um, run by the inimitable Mr. Gary Sharp. Um, a light, airy venue, if ever I've seen one, with some great stock levels in there for just about every popular game going. Highly recommend it as a friendly local gaming store if you're in the area to pop in and see what's on sale. Um, we basically took over the whole shop with 16 players, I believe. Um, it was likened to a bit of a shark pool that I dove into. These were my first games at 2,000 points, having played the week previously at the Forge at Altibash at 1,250 points. This was a step up for me to the 2,000 point level. Um, yeah, it was an interesting one where um, it was really just two or three more units to play with. I didn't really notice much of a difference, I have to say. Kings of War is such a quick, slick game that one or two extra units on the table or adapting a unit that I played with at Altibash, for instance, um, the whites that I was using, sorry, the wraiths that I was using. I doubled up into a regiment as opposed to two troops that I'd used last week. Um, so really just a few extra attacks and a bit of a change to the nerve and uplifting the nerve. So I felt fairly at ease, I think, is the best way of putting it. The extra 750 points didn't really cause me an awful lot of issues other than um, general incompetence at playing the game and learning some of the intricacies and the movement type skills that this game demands of you. It's been said many times before, it's a difficult game to master, easy to learn, but difficult to master. There you go. Um, so, 4 games, two in the morning, two in the afternoon, um, but a bit of a shark pool with the likes of Elliot, Moorish, and Nick Williams, Ian Sturgis. These are people that I know particularly well, or at all, in fact, but are certainly names that pop up whenever you look at Kings of War events, and they're generally floating around the top of the table. So for these people to be in a field of 16, um, I I imagined it was going to be a rough ride for me, and so it proved. However, the too long didn't read summary would be played games, had fun, end of story. So here we go. First game, I was drawn against the lovely Christian Hoffman playing an undead army. So it was a mirror match. However, Christian is, I don't think he'd be called a veteran of Kings of War, but he certainly knows his army really well. He's been playing for considerably longer than myself and had quite an interesting army, the majority of which are repurposed Games Workshop Legions of Nagash or Flesh Eater Court type models that he is multi-based onto trays, or sorry, put onto movement trays as opposed to multi-basing. So just going across the top of the picture there, we have 2 units of zombie trolls with a Revenant King on Worm at the back. That was this Soul Mantic model that he had. I may struggle to remember what these are because a lot of these are proxy models. The unit just behind the hill there, at the back of the board, sorry, Christian's army is at the top of the picture there. I believe were Revenant Cavalry, although they were sort of floating, wispy type things. I'm not entirely sure what the proper name is within the Games Workshop canon, but they were acting as Revenant Cavalry. And then we have a horde of ghouls. We have a regiment of skeletons. Right on the end there, and I'm struggling. Oh, I know what these are. These are raids, 2 units of raids. I'm not entirely sure what the model is. Again, I do apologise. But it's 2 regiments of raids, and we have right in the end a regiment, I think, or it may be a horde of Barrow Wights. Character-wise, right in the centre there, behind the ghouls, we have a necromancer. And over to the side is a Games Workshop floaty, ghosty type thing that was proxying for Lady Ilona, something similar to that. So my deployment in my army, I won't go through my deployment in every game, but I'll just go through the list that I have. I had 1 horde of zombies, 4 regiments of zombies, a horde of werewolves, a horde of revenant infantry, a regiment of revenant cavalry. And moving along, we have 2 troops of mummies. There's 1 over here on the right and 1 you can't quite see over on the left there. And some a regiment of wraiths. Character-wise, I had a army standard bearer. I had the Revenant King and 2 necromancers. Now, interestingly, I think probably in the 2nd or 3rd turn of this game, I forgot. I checked my list and for some reason thought I'd omitted the 2nd necromancer. So I take this one off here, which is the only GW model in my army, a female vampire type figure. But I did actually have 2 necromancers in the army, but I sort of crippled myself from fairly early on by getting confused. I'll just put that down to age and leave it there. So there we go, that's set up. I won the dice off for first turn and gave it to Christian. I think I did that in every opportunity I had actually to give first turn away. Not entirely sure why. I was sort of thinking that it would be advantageous to get him to come across the table and maybe move into charge range to give me that alpha strike. One little tip here that I picked up from Andy Ransom's channel when I've been watching his battle reports or his deep delves into his battle reports. I don't think he's actually talked about this, but I did notice that he keeps his dice in piles of 10s at the back of the board. I've got 4 piles here of white, red, blue, and green, which makes rolling large amounts of dice really easy. So if I've got 12 attacks, I'll take 1 pile of 10 and 2 from another. and that takes seconds to work out and throw the dice down. If it's 30 dice, 3 piles, etc. And then it does seem to be the general etiquette of the scene, as it is, to pick out the misses, leaving hits on the table, which makes it easy for your opponent to see. And if you accidentally pick up a hit, thinking it's a miss, you're only disadvantaging yourself. Whereas if it's the other way around, you pick out the hits and leave the misses on the table, you may accidentally pick up a miss, therefore advantaging yourself. So that's what I am trying to endeavour to do. I do enjoy clean play, as it were. I hate to think I may gain an advantage inadvertently somewhere. So that's my method of dice rolling. And down to the right here, you see a big pile of black dice. They are used as wound counters, so I never get them confused when I'm rolling dice. So anyway, here we go. Let's move on. This is here we go. This is just a bit of a close-up. I don't think I do this for every opponent, but it was a lovely army that Christian had put together. I think these are sort of big ghoulish type monsters from the Flesh Eater Court army. There we go. You can't quite see Lady Alona or Iona. She's somewhere behind that wood. And this is my effort here. Just going back there. Here we go. So there you see the troop of mummies over on the side. I do apologise that seem to be going backwards and forwards. Here we go. Right. I think I have control. Yeah, basically my army is decided on the models I have painted, as opposed to any thoughts of min-maxing or trying to work out synergies. It's really just what I have painted. And in all honesty, I struggle to build lists, so just go for the figures that I like. Okay, turn one. So as I said, I gave that turn away to Christian. This actually must be his second turn thinking about it, because I've clearly made some movements here, trying to counter his advance. Of course, we're both shambling, other than his ghouls, which are in the centre, relying on surge machinations to increase the speed. Not entirely sure why I threw this zombie horde out into the middle of the table. They got a double charge here from the skeletons and the ghouls. That being a horde of ghouls. There we go. I think the zombies held on remarkably well, to be honest, and didn't immediately get defeated. I had one bit of tech that I picked up off, I think it was the Direct Misfire podcast on the Friday before the event, which was a bit of an attempt at enemy hero assassination, which shall come up in a minute. I've just been reminded of that by the fact that the Chris's necromancer is sat on her own there at the back, just shepherding her forces around her. Now we can see that unit. I have no idea what these models are on top of this hill, but they are representing Revenant Cavalry. I've clearly forgotten to change the dice there that I've brought along to mark the turns, but we have a bit of jockeying for position here with 2 units of Wraiths and a unit of Barrow-wights, and Lady Alona at the back there. You can see her just floating around, trying to tempt in this zombie regiment, these Wraiths of mine, and you can just see a troop of mummies appearing at the bottom of the screen. And over on my left flank, zombies have started to take that hill. The mummies are just moving up to the left of it, and I'm just trying to get the best position I can, really. The werewolves here, hopefully, if they're going to get charged, will cause a hindered charge across this barricade. And it looks like Chris is just about to charge those those Revenant cavalry into me. Skewed picture there, that's a little bit out of sequence. So as you can see, the zombie horde have actually held off against that double charge from the ghouls and the skeletons, taking 6 wounds, which was quite nice. Zombie hordes are very difficult to take off in one turn with that Nova 22. I think that shall be my default option as opposed to running regiments of zombies in the future. Sorry about that, I thought I'd managed to rotate all the pictures that went askew, but you can see here that's a double charge from those zombie trolls into my werewolves. And another one. And another one. I do apologise about this. If these continue, I may have to stop the screen. Stop the cast. Okay, so this is awful. I do apologise. Okay, that's the double charge of the zombie trolls into the werewolves. Sees out my zombie horde, and there's going back. I think it went into the skeletons. I'm not entirely sure on that one. And over on my right flank, the zombies and mummies are taking on the wraiths. Here we go, that's better. So my wraiths are up against the barrow wights here. I've charged in and caused, I think, 3 or 4 wounds to the wraiths, but barrow wights, but they're hanging on. Lady Alona is floating around there, about to cause some mischief. And as you can see, just the back here of Christian's 2 wraith units, one of which has taken a bit of damage, but I suspect they've caused some mischief for me there on my right flank. Right, here we go. This is my shenanigans. So my necromancer in the middle of the board had taken the legendary spell Teleport, as advised by the Direct Misfire podcast, and I'd armed my Revenant King with the Mournful Blade, which doubles his attacks when attacking individuals. So this was my secret tech of the day. And my necromancer teleported my Revenant King 20 inches, which essentially gives him flight, behind Christian's lines with the aim of taking out that necromancer. However, as shall be seen, it wasn't entirely successful, because certainly, obviously, the spells come in the shooting phase, which is after the movement phase, so you can't teleport into combat from what I can see. So although I may be wrong on that, actually, I'm now doubting myself and think I may have hamstrung myself somewhat. And if I could see comments, I wonder if Andy would be able to correct me, but I can't actually see the comments whilst sharing this screen, so no. So I may well have hamstrung myself with that and missed a trick, as they say. Anyhow, here we go. Yeah, the left flank is looking rather dodgy now. I just have a unit of zombies on that hill. The troop of mummies have gone, the werewolves have gone, and the zombies, albeit they've got the hill, that is no consolation when there's a Revenant King on Worm and 2 hordes of zombie trolls bearing down on you, or they may be regiments. Can't quite remember. So the horde of zombies has gone, which rather leaves the necromancer exposed and the army standard. You can see here Christian's necromancer has just ran away from my Revenant King, and I'm doubting myself even more now about that teleport, whether or not that would be, whether I could teleport them into combat, because as it is, it seems too easy for this necromancer to get away from me, having flown across the board. So I think I may have got that wrong. And my right flank is looking somewhat empty too. Everything has gone there. This was the kill scenario. So it's purely on killing enemy units. And at this point, I'm not sure I've killed anything. There we go. Lady Alona is just about to turn her attention onto my right flank. So the Revenant Cavalry go in and charge against the ghouls. At last, do 6 wounds, but as you can see, they're still there. The Revenant King does finally catch up with the Necromancer. Does 3 wounds, but she remains. And the zombies have also charged in against the skeletons. To little effect by the looks of it. The one consolation is I've still got the horde of revenants there, albeit once this lot over on Christian's right flank start to turn and pay their attention to this unit, they aren't going to be for this world much longer. And here we go, he spotted his opportunity. The zombie trolls are about to turn round, and my zombie regiment on the hill has got a weird Revenant King on Worm in the rear and zombie trolls to the front. Not a good position. So my right flank hasn't entirely collapsed. I've still got the mummies there, but again, they aren't long for this earth. That's only a matter of time before they disappear. And this is the disappointment of the day, really. The Revenant King failing to kill this Necromancer, even with the Mortal Blade, giving him 10 attacks, albeit hitting on 4s. And as somebody said on the day, 4s is a very swingy number. And that is really not a position that you wish to get a troop of mummies into either, with a regiment of wraiths and I don't know if that's a horde or a regiment of barrow whites. Either way, things are going to go badly for that troop of mummies. So the Revenant Cavalry have failed to kill the ghouls. The zombies have failed to kill the skeletons. And the Revenant King is still failing to kill the Necromancer. Whilst over on my left flank, those zombie trolls have finally got the charge into the Revenant infantry. Caused 4 wounds, so they've hung around. Those zombies really having a bad day. So in the centre, I do start to pile some pressure on here. I think that's number 12 on the yellow D20 that Chris is using for his wound counter. Necromancer's up to 5 wounds, but still alive. And you can see this unit of wraiths now coming into my right flank to cause some mischief. And of course, the zombies have disappeared off that hill, but I've clearly managed to take out one of the units of zombie trolls, although the revenants have taken 8 wounds for their trouble. And there we go again. That's a beautifully painted model. I've no idea what it is from Games Workshop, but Chris done a lovely job on that. And in the centre, I'm still struggling, although it looks like I've wavered them. I think that yellow token was a waver token. I'm still struggling to get them. That horde of ghouls gone. And here we go, the coup de grace for the revenants. That's going to be a bad day. In fact, there you can see they're on 15 wounds, and somehow I've managed to stick around. So the centre here, the Revenant Cavalry and zombies have actually seen off the horde of ghouls, but look what's coming in from the flank. We've got 1 unit of wraiths there, there's another unit of wraiths behind them, and plus Lady Alona is looking to get in on the action. I've clearly bounced off there on my counter charge into the zombie trolls. The less said about him, the better. And the revenants finally succumb to their injuries. It looks like the Necromancer's made a run for it as well again. Yes, leaving my Revenant King on his own, thinking, why on earth was I teleported all this way across this field? And the Revenant Knights are really in a very poor position. When you look, we have a regiment of skeletons. That's Lady Alona in the middle there. We have a unit of wraiths and a flank charge from a unit of wraiths into these poor Revenants. And they were not long for this earth. Finally, my Revenant King looks to make a valid contribution, although his Mournful Blade is pointless against those skeletons. I suspect that was the last image of the game. Yes, there we go, and there's Christian's list. So I wasn't tabled. I take some comfort from that. The Revenant King and the Regiment of Zombies were left, but Necromancer, Army Standard Bearer were gone. I'd removed my own Necromancer in the mistaken idea that I'd actually only put one in the list, but I did find the second page of my list and remind myself in future games that there's two Necromancers. But a good game. Christian's a good guy. We had some laughs throughout the game, but I was really schooled in the maneuver tactics of this rather pacey undead army. So that was one hefty loss. Okay, this was game two before lunch against the ever lovely Martin Radbourne with Night Stalkers. He did give me the list, and as you can see, I've taken a picture of it, but it meant absolutely nothing to me. I should have really paid attention to what these Void Lurkers can do, because they were absolutely meaty. Here we go. Over to our right on this green table here was it was Andy Sharp versus Ian Davis in a battle of the podcasts. But this was our game, and a very compact army is all I can say about the Night Stalkers. I know very little about the abilities or what each unit were. I know there's some scarecrow chaff here who are basically zombies with a slightly worse nerve, actually. And these two big flying creatures, I think they were the Void Lurkers. They're actually Legions of Everblight Hordes models, but beautifully painted there by Martin. And this thing here, I forget what he was called, but he was basically an immovable object that a unit of mummies tied up very well during the game. But let's see how we go. So there's a bit of a closer picture. I really can't tell you what any of these units are, but I think this was a Legion of Everblight Monster 2, repurposed into a Night Stalker list. So it looks like I took the first turn here, actually, and manoeuvred up on both flanks. I forget what the scenario is. These were possibly loot tokens, or there may have been objectives. I forget, to be honest. I do apologise. So these Revenant Cavalry are coming up here to threaten. And I've got werewolves, mummies, and zombies over on this flank, hoping to give these nightmarish units something to think about. Interestingly, Martin used a wooden proxy base for the large flying type creatures, which I think were the Void Lurkers, just because there's so many protrusions and extended wings and tails, etc., that it'd be impossible to line them up effectively against enemy units. So he actually moved the proxy square bases around and had these figures over off onto the side, which did cause me a little bit of confusion, actually. No fault of Martin's, just my stupidity, really. So here we go. I don't think Martin's actually moved up at this point. Just waiting for me to come on. So there you can see these bases being used as proxies for the lurkers, and they're effectively facing back to back here, one facing to the right and one facing to the left. And the actual models were set over here, which I did get a little bit confused on and thought, oh my goodness, they're going to charge into this flank of these werewolves. I needn't have bothered. I needn't have worried. As you can see, I've actually remembered to put this necromancer on the board. However, there was something in Martin's army, and I forget what it was, that had the blizzard spell, which was a real pain for her. This cotton wool token here indicating that she was wavered from the blizzard spell, which denied me surge, the use of surge down on this left flank. This was the creature here, this purple thing. I've no idea what that is, but it was flinging blizzards around like it was Christmas. So we have some mummies into this void lurker, which I think was this model here, and then these rays about to take this on. But goodness me, they were difficult to deal with. My werewolves have got rid of the floaty, ghosty type things, and again, I do apologise. I have no idea what they were, but they've got their eyes on this prize here. We'll see if they achieved that. So things have moved on a touch. Martin seemed to be reluctant to move his troops across the board. I think he was waiting for me to show my hand, knowing that he could either block me up with these scarecrows and then deliver the hammer blow. So it's a hammer and anvil type technique, I think. But I certainly fell into the trap that he opened up to me. So you can see these proxy bases again being thrown into my men, and it looks like there's been a flank charge on the wraiths. Yeah, so this probably wasn't the best thing I ever did. Charge the Revenant Cavalry into the big monstery thing here because there was flank charges and double charge, and they were short-lived, unfortunately, the Revenants. Bit of a blurry shot there. I apologise as the zombie horde goes into these scarecrows, for that is what I think they are. And our werewolves are still there, but the raids have disappeared and the mummies are hanging in against this void lurker. I made a bit of a mistake, I think, with this zombie regiment. I do actually move them towards this sandy coloured hill here, whereas I probably should have about faced them to meet up against this, whatever this unit was representing, these floating wispy type things. As expected, the Revenant Cavalry did not hang around very long. There's still lots of zombies here, which are great chaff units if used correctly. I'm not entirely convinced on the efficiency of a zombie regiment as opposed to a horde. So we see a troop of mummies here, and these are going to be eventually contacting this big beastie, and it becomes a little bit of a stalemate. I'm not entirely sure I did the right thing here, putting these revenants behind the zombie horde. My thinking was that Martin's unit would crash into these, see them off, and then I would get their charge back in. So sort of a piece for piece exchange, but it didn't really pay off, unfortunately. So the werewolves have landed on that token, but the troop of mummies has disappeared. So we've got two freewheeling void lurkers here, and this unit, which isn't a great position for the werewolves. And I've once again tried my movement shenanigans of the teleport, but again, I think I may have misread the rule to my disadvantage here and missed out on a charge on this guy. So a general shot of the line there, starting to take some casualties. I've picked up loot tokens here. So it was picking up loot tokens off these central objectives. Both of them are zombies. Sorry, the zombie horde. So this is the zombie horde, and these are actually two zombie regiments side by side. I think I probably should have separated them just for clarity, but this regiment here to the left has picked up the loot token, and the werewolves are gone from what looks like to have been a double charge from void lurkers. The mummies and this big beastie just basically stand there and slap each other around the face for the rest of the game. My Revenant King is really in a tight spot now. This unit and this guy are about to make it a very sad day for the Revenant King. And I'm making really no headway here, albeit I've got rid of one of Martin's units and now got a flank charge on the other. Now we can see a bit more of a close-up of the mummies and this guy duking it out. And my Revenant King about to question his loyalties. In the general, the zombie horde here has taken a significant amount of damage. We're up to 16 there, so they're not much longer for this earth. Particularly now that their support has been recharged by this unit, whatever this is. And the Revenant King struggling to hold his own against these nightmarish creatures. So this contest between the big Gribbly and the mummies basically carried on for the rest of the game. This little gap here on this base is actually because this unit is way below model minimum model count. I think there should be 6 figures on there, and there's only 4. There's space there for an extra one. I can find one, and I'll squeeze another one in there to make 6. But I do like those mummy models. I think they're very chunky and menacing looking. Okay, so there's a real hodgepodge of combats going on here. I wish I knew what this unit was and this unit was, but either way, it was going. Now is about the time when things turn very bad for the zombies. There you go. They've all gone. They've just melted away like butter. To be no more. And those Revenant infantry in the middle, who was yet untouched, are now faced with the whole weight, really, of the Night Stalker army. And there, look at all those zombies. The March of the Dead. All of those zombies killed in one phase, one turn. So inevitably the Revenant infantry charge in. My king's still around, actually, although he's taken 9 wounds. He's mortally or grievously injured. Necromancer's sat at the back here, and I've still got my army standard bearer. I think I've got Banner of the Griffin with the rally special rule. Revenant King thinking, why has he sent me all this way again? Martin just checking a charge angle there. And the Revenant King gallantly has fallen into the sands, hopefully to be raised up once more by a passing necromancer. And the slugfest continues until the end of the game there with the mummies. The Revenant's now in a sticky spot, the stickiest situation since the stick insect got stuck on a sticky bun. And they disappear too. So at the end of the game, again, I wasn't tabled, which was nice. The mummies hang on in there. They've got 7 wounds. and the army standard bearer, and that necromancer remains. And there's lunch. So lunchtime came, and the glitterati of the podcasting world, Martin Radbourne, Ian Davies, and Andy Sharp, took me around the corner to the Stotty shop, and this is a Stotty. That is one heck of a sandwich. I was challenged to take the, I think it might be called the All-In or the Big Breakfast version of the Stotty, but that's basically a full English breakfast on a sandwich. Now, to give you some scale, there's my hand. You can see the size of it. It was absolutely huge. In fact, I didn't need to eat for the rest of the day after that. And then, there's Ian desperately trying to open his jaws wide enough to take his in, and Andy looking away in disgust. So the afternoon came, and it was a game against Mr. Ben Wright, who I've actually faced before in Dead Zone when he played GCPS with lots of mortars. Fortunately, he got no mortars today. He had undead. So my second visit to the undead mirror match. Got a lovely painted army as Ben, and certainly knows one or two tricks, I would say, in how to maneuver them. So this scenario was lots of objectives across the middle of the table, two of these being worth 2 points if you took a token from them, and the rest 1. And somewhat more elite than my army. So over here, this is, I think, at the end of Ben's first turn, we've got some Soul Reaver cavalry who have charged onto this objective. We have some mummies, we've got some Barrow-wights, we've got Revenant cavalry, we have another unit of Revenant cavalry, another unit of mummies, and I forget what these guys are. It'll come, we'll see very soon, I should imagine. So sorry about the blurred picture there, but he swept these Soul Reaver cavalry round onto this objective, which gives me an interesting choice, which you'll see very soon. And there we go. We can see actually he's got a Vampire Lord on Pegasus. I think these are Revenant. Yes, they're Revenant infantry. We've got Morgoth there, the actual Morgoth, the real hero character for the undead. And I think there's another Necromancer around here somewhere, which are Ben's choice of characters. So here's the choice that I had. So on my left flank, I have my Revenants, a unit of zombies here, the Necromancer to try and help the movement shenanigans on this flank, and these wraiths. Now, I was very tempted to put a charge in against these guys, but I chose, for some reason, I chose not to. I can't think why, but I thought it would have been my best chance to move these Soul Reavers off this objective because he doesn't pick the objective up here. He'd only moved onto it at this point. So if I can push him back or cause him some issues, particularly if we could get the zombies round into their flank, that would be 30 attacks going in from here. And I forget how many attacks these guys do in a regiment, but some significant number, and they're quite difficult to shift with a defense of 6. So there we go. I think I made the decision not to do that and to bait him towards me rather than me taking advantage and moving in myself. But very nice multi-base there from Mr. Wright with the Soul Reavers and my zombies looking at that very tempting flank, albeit likely to be hindered by the wood. Yeah, there you go. I've actually encroached onto Mr. Davis's table. This is my second game in a row playing on the table next to Mr. Davis, and he did remind me that I'd encroached onto his playing area. But I've made the decision not to move them in. I wonder if I would live to regret that. So a general advance here. This was a bit of a stalemate between these two units of Revenant Cavalry and my Revenant Cavalry. Ben was measuring this distance between his line and my line to see who would inch forward enough to give away that first charge, which I'm beginning to realise is a very important stage in any game of Kings of War, that alpha strike. And whether or not, if you do receive that alpha strike, how you counter it by hopefully holding with the unit that's been charged and then bringing a unit into the flank of the enemy unit. So yeah, I've just moved my raise up and tempted Ben into this charge to hold them off, and the intention being to get the zombies round and the revenants round into the flank here. So the zombies are going to go onto the objective, and the revenants come on to the flank of the Soul Reavers if I can hold off, if those wraiths can hang around. There you go. There's some deforestation taking place there to allow the maneuver. This necromancer behind the wall was causing some problems. He had a spell I hadn't come across before. I do apologise for that. But basically, he was rolling dice under my defence value. So the higher the defence, the worse it was for the unit. I forget what it's called. Begins with A. So zombies with defense 3 aren't a particularly good target for that spell, but the wraiths certainly are with defense of 6. Over on my right flank, the wheels have taken the charge against the revenants and caused some mischief there. I've again used my super secret tech teleport the Revenant King with a Mournful Blade behind the enemy lines, looking to take out Morgoth. But once again, it was a bit like a scene from Benny Hill with Morgoth just running away from my Revenant King. I'd be interested. I'm growing ever more curious as to if I got that wrong, and I could have actually teleported him into contact, and therefore it would have been a true character assassination. Actually, just going back to this side, to the right-hand side of me was Gary Sharp, the store owner, playing Man of War. I'm playing that all day. To be having great fun. So I was talking about that alpha strike, and here we see two regiments of Revenant Cavalry taking the charge into my zombie horde, and I was looking to try and get that position around where I could get the flank and get the zombie. So these zombies certainly are into the flank of those, but the Revenant Cavalry not so much. This was interesting as well. The vampire on Pegasus flew behind my lines and certainly distracted me as I turned these troops of mummies to try and face off against him. Really needlessly, to be honest. I really should have just left him to his own devices and made better use of these troops to take the battle to the enemy. That was quite an important lesson for me, that it's very easy to get distracted either by one big thing, a big monster, like I did in the previous game with the mummies, or a flying character like this. Kings of War is anything but hero hammer, so albeit powerful in their own right and able to take the fight to the enemy, they are not game changers, or game winners, in fact. So over on this flank, you can see I've got the Revenants into the Soul Reavers. Not caused an awful lot of damage there, only 7 wounds. I think it took me a little bit too long to get rid of these Soul Reavers. The zombies are inching closer to the objective there, looking to pick up that loot token, which I believe was worth, I think that was worth it's one of those that was worth 2 points. I think that's why there's a blue counter under there. You just see some mummies shambling forward, and the Barrow Whites haven't actually made much of a move, and that Ben's necromancer behind that wall was a little bit annoying. So the Vampire Lord on Pegasus has got the charge into the rear of those zombies. My werewolves are about to lose the plot as a regiment of mummies goes into their flank with the revenants to their front. Again, things aren't looking too great. So Ben takes the counter charge here into the revenants, leaving his flank exposed to the raids, which was interesting to see. Mummies taking on zombies. We don't need to place bets as to who is most fancied in that encounter. And my zombie horde has been very roughly handled. It looks like something like 15 wounds on there, but he's failed to break them, so that was useful. There's the speed bump, and those barrow wights and these revenant cavalry here are about to get acquainted. As expected, the werewolves go. And my raids have gone. I'm not entirely sure what saw them off. It may well have been this necromancer with that cheeky spell, because defense 6 made it a very sad day for them, and they disappeared. And my revenants here are struggling on 10 wounds, as opposed to certainly single figures. There's that 5 or 6 on the d20. Can't quite see. There you go. Another dramatic shot of the battlefield. And the zombies have managed to hold off them for a turn there. That was interesting. They managed to hold up those mummies, but as you can see, there's a big gap here for my revenant cavalry now to take the day. As was said at the Battle of Waterloo, now's your time, Maitland, by Wellington, as they sent in the Household Brigade to charge across the plains into the French. But I'm not sure my undead are descendants of the French. Yes, this flank was a real write-off from fairly early on. You can see I've got some clock issues there, actually. And this was the only game where the clock came into play, which I found quite interesting, actually. 3 out of the 4 games, 50 minutes per player didn't seem an issue. But in this one, for some reason, the clock went very much down to the wire. And Ben has got a 9-minute advantage on me there. But yes, this flank is a bit of a write-off. These mummies rather exposed out on their own there. And here we can see I've taken a charge into this right-hand unit of Revenant Cavalry and caused some injury, but with a flank charge and a horde to the front, I would have expected a little bit better. You can actually see the Revenant Cavalry have taken the charge to the Barrow Wights, but not seen them off. And the mummies and the zombies are trading some blows. The zombies here up on the top left-hand corner of the picture are chasing this necromancer, but never going to get there. Actually, the Soul Reaver cavalry have gone at this point, so my revenants have finally had success and seen them away. There you go, evidence, pictorial evidence, if ever you needed it. So at this stage, it wasn't looking too bad over on this flank. I was fairly pleased to get rid of those Soul Reavers. The Barrow Wights have taken the charge in the face from the revenants. Ben contemplating his future. Okay, so this was a complicated mess where the Vampire Lord into the flank of my zombie horde with Revenant Cavalry in the other end. This middle unit of Revenant Cavalry have turned to face the threat from the zombies on their flank, and the zombies have got mummies in their rear, and Morgoth's just having a bit of a lie down. It's all got a bit too much for him, I think. And the Revenants have charged into my mummies, or I've charged the mummies into the revenants and caused 9 wounds. That's quite nice. Another sit rep over here with the zombie on mummy and revenant cavalry on Barrow Wight. And the Barrow-wights have gone. That was a rather good piece exchange there, I feel. And this flank is mine, really, albeit probably a little bit too far away. So the zombies have picked up the loot counter there, and they're just going to stay there for the rest of the game. There's no reason for them to move whatsoever. Unfortunately, this horde of revenants gets held up by the necromancer, who have failed to dispatch with any great efficiency, preventing a charge into into the rear of these mummies. And that necromancer turns out to be quite a large speed bump. My revenants there looking rather splendid, painted in 54 minutes, so under 9 minutes a figure for those. And anybody who's following my army painting challenge, that's the sort of target I need to maintain per figure to get this army painted in a weekend. Yeah, those revenants are just thinking, how on earth can this meek, mild-mannered necromancer hold up a horde of allegedly the greatest fighting unit in my army? This vampire lord just continues to cause mischief and is taking on a unit of mummies now. There's a bit of a general picture, so you'll notice a definite lack of zombies in that picture. I know it's a bit blurred, but Sailor Gare, the mummies all sort of crumbled again in one turn, really. Just have a look at the clock. What did the clock say? So I'm down to 5 minutes and Ben's down to 10. But as units diminish on the board, then that is prone to happen. I'm not quite sure what's happened here, why the Revenant horde has been separated. I suspect it's because of a fixed model tree here that meant that I couldn't fit them together. But you'll see my Revenant cavalry have disappeared. The mummies have come in and taken on the Revenants. The Necromancer finally... Oh no, the Necromancer's over there, sorry. I clearly didn't manage to finish him off. And Ben's Revenant cavalry are coming round to say hello to their little friends. Yes, there's a distinct lack of zombies in that picture. And my Revenant King again questioning his life decisions. Okay, so that was the end of that one. I wasn't tabled again. We did get right down to something like a minute or two left on each clock. I think I have my Revenant Infantry and the Revenant King left, and maybe a Necromancer. So again, not tabled, but a third heavy defeat of the day. So I think we know where this game, where this tournament report is heading. And as was mentioned at the start of this trawl through these games, in such a small field of competitors where there are some people of significant skill, let's say within the game of Kings of War, it's hardly likely that a newbie such as me with very little experience will come across at some point a far better skilled player than myself. In the larger events, and I'm hoping this to be the case at Clash of Kings, for instance, which I'm hoping to go to, if there's a field of 70 or 80 players, after rounds 2 and 3, then it sort of starts to sort itself out or level itself out, where you find your level with players of equal experience and equal aptitude for the game, and you can have a fairly competitive game. But in this format, and this is no criticism at all, this is how it is, and obviously anybody can turn up to an event, and the more people that turn up the better. But it certainly this is what I mean about the shark pool effect, where I felt like I was swimming with sharks. So I end up on the bottom table, in the last game of the day against Dan Reed, who I think did rather well at Franticon, and was most people there were rather surprised to see him down on the bottom table with 3 losses himself throughout the day. I think his dice had pretty much deserted him. But here we are, facing the best painted army of the day, and deservedly so. I first saw this army at Franticon, absolutely beautifully painted, stunning in fact, using Games Workshop elves on multi-bases. So those bases alone are absolutely stunning in the effect that is achieved. And this was my first ever game of facing off against elves. Not a lot of shooting actually. I'd heard that you can get lots of shooting within High Elf Army. I think there's one horde of archers and one war machine spear thrower thing, and then he's got I think in the middle here is a horde of sort of regular elf infantry, and then some of the more elite types, and then 2 units of elven heavy cavalry there. I forget what they're called, Stormwind or something. There's an elven king on a horse here, and a dragon guy here. So last game of the day, and I have to say, this was Dan is a great guy, very friendly, and we played a very friendly game. But I did not feel competitive at all in this game. I think I made some bad mistakes throughout it with positioning. I thought I just didn't have a clue as to what to do against the elves, who are, and this isn't saying that the elves are broken. Absolutely not. I'm not experienced enough to make any sort of judgment on that, but I just didn't feel I've got any counter to what Dan was offering me, and I played poorly, made some poor decisions, and just did not feel as though I gave Dan a good game, unfortunately, which I was sorry about, and that is one of my fears as a newcomer to the scene, that people are looking for a competitive game, and I'm not sure I'm giving them that yet. I hope people will understand and just accept somebody new into the community who's just picking up the game. But for somebody of Dan's experience to play somebody against me, and I'm not sure it was much of a challenge, and it was a bit of a steamroller, to be honest. Anyway, let's take a look at the pictures. There we go, the beautiful elven dragon. The gem work is absolutely beautiful on there, on the head of the dragon. There we go, just look at that magnificence, that elven magnificence. Sorry, I've got a bit of a blurry one there, but rest assured those cavalry are equally as nice as the rest of the figures in the army. And there are those, that horde of elven archers. There's his list. Archers, Palace Guard, Kindred, Tall Spears, Stormwind Cavalry, there you go, that's the elite cavalry. The Bolt Thrower, Standard Bearer, Elven King, King's Champion, and the mystical Dragon, Kindred Lord. I think that's a new addition in the Clash of Kings 2019. I think he's the big version, the big dragon on the 75 by 75 base. So I've sort of tried a bit of bait and click here, really, I guess, where I've thrown these zombies out, hoping for Dan to charge me, and then hopefully somehow counter with the mummies and the revenants coming up the rear. That was the plan. Otherwise, a general shamble across the hill. Now, quite interestingly, this was the invade scenario, so it's about getting unit strength over into your opponent's half of the table. And Dan, had, with a small army, had left this half of the table rather empty, albeit I suspect that's why the dragon's on this flank, to counter any threats that did move up here. So I did position quite a few units over this side, hoping just to creep over into Dan's half of the table and score some points. That was the plan. There you go. We can see the dragon having spotted my flank manoeuvre and thinking he's going to do something about it. Atmospheric shot there of the raids with the smoke billowing around them, or the fog, and the zombies just doing what they do and shambling across. So the archers move up onto this hill as expected and didn't move for the rest of the game, really. Just took pot shots. I certainly don't think they were the game winners. They were annoying more than anything. I don't think they did masses of damage. What lovely work that is on that banner there. I've only just noticed that. Very well done, sir. So this was the only game where I didn't get my teleport shenanigans off. Dan got the Alpha Strike in there and managed to charge my Necromancer with his Elven King on trusty Elven Steed. And that was to be a very short game for this teleporting Necromancer. Here we're looking at I think Dan was looking at a flank charge from both of these units, and we decided this one couldn't actually see because of the hill, but this one certainly could. Took a hindered charge, but it was a charge into the flank all the same. No idea why I'd wheeled these around to expose that flank so invitingly, and that's those zombie hordes just continuing across. So the Raves have made the run for it and probably shown the hand a little bit too early to fly across the table, hoping the werewolves, the mummies and the zombies are going to hold that flank. And again, this was what I'm talking about when Kings of War is such a game of manoeuvre and spotting these things. But I hadn't spotted that I'd left this flank open here. There's a troop of mummies just the other side of the dragon, but they're sort of, I guess they're halfway back between these two bases of werewolves, which I'm using as a horde, which left probably 3/4 or 4/5 of this back base exposed. And because this dragon can fly, and because of its size, can see over all of my troops and therefore see that flank, and there was space for him to land, and there he was into the flank of the werewolves. Blurry image there as I get my zombie horde eventually into contact with some enemy. And although the picture's blurry, you can see this regiment on the left and the regiment on the right there have already both taken significant wounds. And there we go, this not the Silver Helms, the Stormwind cavalry into the flank of my revenants with one of the elite units of elves into the front. And this flank really is just a bit of a stalemate. Interestingly, Dan pulled these elven cavalry back. He was clearly expecting that I'd got some idea about what I was doing and that there's some shenanigans in me moving the mummies and the revenants up. In truth, I hadn't got a clue what to do here, and Dan really just outplayed me here. He clearly this movement thing, which I keep coming back to, is so important. Because all movement is open and fixed as opposed to a random charge or whatever, you can really play a canny game through positioning and the movement of your models, and that is something that I've learned throughout both of the events that I've been to so far, and it's something I need to improve on. Dan played an absolute blinder here. The Necromancer's obviously hung on a bit there, but this really just is a fight in the wood throughout the whole game with my Revenant King. Necromancer eventually being dispatched, and the Revenant King and the Elven King just trading blows in that wood. Another shot there. My mummies seem to have disappeared. I'm not sure what took them off. It may well have been shots from the archers on the hill there. I suspect it was, in fact. And that is a blurry one. I'm clearly devastated by the loss of the Revenant Cavalry. As expected, that flank charge from the Elven heavy cavalry and this elite unit of elves has seen them off, and the writing is really on the wall from this point on, because I've got nothing of any substance whatsoever to hold up against what's about to hit me. There's a bit of a clearer picture. You can see this duel between the enigmatic Elven Prince and my Revenant King. And the dragon is just here starting to mop a few things up on the flank. There we go, the classic image of foot knight against mounted prince duking it out. I'm rather proud that the Revenant King managed to hold on as long as he did against this guy. He's beautiful. Just look at the paintwork on that. It is stunning. I'm not sure I've seen in my entire hobby life an army as well painted as this one. And the dragon continuing to chew through this flank. I'm not sure at which point it was, but Dan certainly helped me out with some advice on order of charges or activations and positioning, so I could actually get a charge in to this dragon. I think the mummies and the rays actually get into a position very shortly where they start to do some significant damage to the dragon, and that was all on the part of the sporting Dan Reed. So thank you very much, Dan, for that. And zombies are just starting to melt away at this point. That is not a situation a zombie regiment needs to be in. And I'm fairly sure at this point there may be just one regiment of zombies left, if that, right over on the left flank. My Revenant infantry here are just exposed on their own. About to have 2 units of heavy cavalry plus these elite. I think the Palace Guard about to come into them and probably receive shots from the archers too. So this is the situation, I think, where Dan gave me the advice and allowed me to get some attacks into this dragon from both the mummies and the raids. For the time being, there is this unit of, I think they are Palace Guard. I'll call them Palace Guard, even if that isn't what they are. So getting towards the end here, and here we can see the charge. This isn't a flank charge as such. Dan's just turned the dragon sideways to allow me to get my figures into position. And you can see again. So there is a double charge from mummies and raids into the dragon. I do start to do some significant damage to it, although I don't think I see it off. So the Revenant infantry have gone. All I've got in the middle there is that lone army standard bearer and just hordes of elves swarming around. And there we go. That is the end. So yeah, I just felt so disappointed that I didn't offer any sort of challenge. I'm not sure I offered much of a challenge in the first 3 games, but I certainly thought I was in with a shout, despite getting crushed eventually. But this game against Dan, I just thought I'd let myself down and could have done so much better. And it was no surprise that I ended up winning the wooden spoon, which I honestly do not mind. I know I've posted 1 or 2 comments up onto the various fanatic pages pondering on yet another wooden spoon, but if I was worried about my results at all, I would have given up wargaming a long time ago. I've never been particularly skillful or adept at these games, but I do enjoy rolling dice. Of course, it's great to win, and it's more about offering that challenge, isn't it, to your opponent. These games are social contracts where I believe you both have a responsibility to each other to make sure you both enjoy the game, no matter what the result. So you should lose with as much grace as you should win, or the other way around. Maybe got a bit tongue twisted on that one. But a really enjoyable day. It's it was great to catch up with Martin. I hadn't seen him since Franticon, and have lunch with Andy and Ian and Martin at the Stotty shop, and to meet some of the luminaries within the Kings of War community. I certainly had some fantastic advice off Nick Williams. He did take the time to message me after my initial video report and give me a few tips and tricks, which unfortunately I'm not sure I managed to put into effect. And he certainly went through my list at the end of this event to give me some tips on what to take in the future and how to get as much out of the army as possible. So that is my Dark Souls Kings of War 2000 point report. Sorry, it's a bit of a ramble, but hopefully I'm still live, and I have no idea if I'm still live, to be honest. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed it. If not, for any of the tactical positioning and situations that I've displayed, at least there's been some pretty pictures to have a look at. I plan to do one of these for every event I go to, and it's entirely inspired by Andy Ransom. I would advise to go to him for advice on playing the various games, whether it's Kings of War or Dead Zone or Dreadball. In fact, go to his channel for advice and tips and how things are done properly. Mine is really just a ramble through what I found to be a very enjoyable day, and to have a look at some pretty pictures as I talk through my games. But I do endeavour to get better both at playing the game and improving some of these results, and also on how I present these reports. They say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and that's how I hope Andy takes this, that I'm not ripping off his format or challenging his space where he's created such an excellent channel and such an excellent format. This is really at the opposite end of the spectrum to what he produces. So I hope he enjoys these reports that I'm putting up, and hopefully I will improve in both aspects in the future. So it's now 10 to 1 in the morning. I'll sign off and say thank you for watching.